Welcome back to another episode of the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. This episode is once again brought to you by our friends over at Galactic Comics and Collectibles at galacticcomicsandcollectibles.com. Happy New Year, everyone. This is the first episode of 2025, and it's a big one for me. Today, we have Tim Jacobus on the podcast to talk Goosebumps. Tim is the artist for the original Goosebumps run. He did the first 62 covers, for the original R.L. Stine Goosebumps run over at Scholastic Books. So we chatted that. We chatted a bunch of different things, how he got the job, how he got into art, all that stuff. But you know what? These are some of the most iconic books in the world, in my opinion, and it's so amazing to be able to talk to Tim on this episode. But before you do listen to this episode, find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Skies, Threads, all those things. Rate, review, subscribe over on Apple and Spotify or wherever you find your podcasts. You can also find this video on YouTube and visit us at capesandtights.com for so much more stuff, reviews, opinions, news, and so much more from the pop culture world. But this is Tim Jacobus talking Goosebumps, the artwork on the cover. Enjoy, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, Tim. How are you today?
I am good. Thanks for having me, Justin. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. So excited to talk to an artist with which some people don't know who you are. That's the sad part.
A lot of people don't know who I am.
So that's the sad part. I was actually talking with a friend of mine, and I picked up a book, and I was like, is your name in any of them?
In the earlier versions, my name wasn't on the title page. Later on, it started to get put in there. So, again, it wasn't anything. It wasn't, nefarious. They just didn't do that at the beginning. Now it's common practice. Almost every book that's published, the illustrator, the cover artist gets their name put in on the title page.
But you might be like one of the as people who were born. I'm born in '86, and so to me, this is like my childhood Goosebumps books. And so to me, you might be the most famous artist we don't know. If that makes any sense, like to us, like this is just these iconic covers.
Now, yes, my work is well known.
Yes,
this face doesn't mean shit. Doesn't get me any special treatment. I don't get a free drink. None of that stuff.
You're like, I used to draw the Goosebumps covers, and people are like, yeah, sure you did. Sure.
Man.
But I mean, if we go back a little further, I mean, what got you into artwork itself? Like what made you become an illustrator or a painter?
So when I was growing up, it was when I went to high school in the 70s. I was a kid in the early 70s, and the idea of being an artist for a living wasn't something that was discussed. I came from a very middle class family, and you're going to go to college and then you're going to get a job and work for somebody. And so my dad knew how to draw, and my best friend next door liked drawing. So drawing was something we just did regularly. It was something we thought was fun. As much as we went and rode our bikes and went swimming at the lake and played basketball, some point during the day, we'd throw the stuff down on the floor in the bedroom and, spend an hour or two just drawing stuff and then sharing each other's illustrations. So the initial part of it was just out of the pure joy of it. I knew I liked art, and as I got older, I'm going, man, is there any way to leverage this stuff? I'm not sure. And when I was a senior in high school, I had accumulated enough of my academics to graduate. You had to accumulate a number of points. I had plenty of points. I had chosen a local college in New Jersey, so that was all underway. And I just needed to kill the day. And of course, I'm not going to go taking physics classes or anything like that. So I went to my guidance counselor. I'm going, man, we got any more art classes I can take? And he goes, well, you cooked everything here at the school. He goes, but they started a new program down the street at the vocational school. And he goes, it's called commercial art. He goes, I don't know anything about it, but it will fit good in your schedule. And I was like, the word art's in there. I'm in.
It's-
Let's just go. And when I got there, it was that, here it is. This is it. This is what I've been looking for.
Mhm.
So went there, really got the juices flowing, and then I had to go back and tell my dad, listen, Pop, I don't want to go to regular college. I want to go to art school. And that did not fly well. That was not well received. And so what I was very lucky about was the guy who was my instructor at the vocational school uh, took the time to get a hold of my dad and fill him in, like give him some
Mhm.
background, because I appreciate it now that I have a kid. I appreciate the idea that you don't listen to your kid when they're 17 years old. They don't know it. So this guy went to bat for me and kind of filled in my dad on the idea that this isn't wild. This is the art industry is a business. Your son can do well. Like it's all legit. So
Mhm.
uh, this guy made an impression on my dad, and he let me change that. I was going instead of going to college, I was going to art school.
That's awesome. Having
Yeah,
someone to go for bat for you for sure. I mean, my vocational schools. I mean, I my day job is doing graphic design and I'm a creative director for a brewery. So I do beer labels and
awesome.
artwork on that side. But my knowledge of using computers was my vocational school that I took.
There you
It was
go.
one like honestly 1 year, my sophomore year, junior year. I took half the day and went to this vocational school and did computer information processing. And it was just basically using computers, using a little bit of Flash, things like that. But that just got me so entrenched in using computers that I'm 38 years old, fast forward 20 years, 23 years, I use my computer for a living. And it's all because of that. So there is
Yeah,
something that, having someone to go to bat for you is
and
great.
but the other side of it is that's the beauty of vocational schools. It's like, here's this tool. We'll show you how to use it. And then if you choose to incorporate it into your toolbox, that's cool. And if not, you
Yeah.
still learn something. You still walk away with a skill. So yeah, no, the whole going to the commercial art classes, then we were introduced into typesetting and stat cameras and all this stuff that was never even remotely talked about at your you go back to school and it's like these are oil paints and this
Yeah.
is watercolor. So again, a whole different ball game.
That's I like to tell people I took a film class in school at my high school, and what it legitimately was just someone telling me, "So watch this movie. You see this? This is called an error in the movie because they have a sandwich and it's half eaten, and now it's not eaten anymore, and things like that." And I'm like, I didn't learn anything. I learned about like that stuff, not anything about actual filming a movie or TV show or anything like that. And so I always tell people I took a film class, like, "Oh, you must know." I'm like, "No, I don't know anything." It was this person who like knew a little bit about film and taught a class or whatever. But yeah, vocational schools are a little bit different because you get entrenched in it and you're there for little bit. Like I said, mine was, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours I was there
Right,
in
mine was
class.
half
Yeah.
a day. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so, I mean, but then that leads, obviously your dad must have been pretty proud that it led to something else afterwards, that you actually did get a
Yeah,
career in
yeah,
artwork.
yeah. He wasn't thrilled. I got out of art school, and I also was very stubborn in my trajectory. I didn't take those. Was another path to doing book covers, and I was going, no, I'm going right to book covers.
Mm,
So if that's your path, it's going to take you longer. It may take you long, well, maybe not longer, but the path is, it's a lot rougher. You're going up the face of the mountain instead of taking the nice path that will take you up to the overlook. And there were times where, again, he didn't know the business. He didn't, again, and I didn't. I was one of those kids where I wasn't bestowing confidence in anybody
yes,
in my
yes.
intellectual prowess. So yeah, there was times where we butted heads over it, and but when I started to get a couple book covers, he's like, "Oh, that's cool." And then it was when the Goosebumps stuff hit,
Mhm.
and there was a a groundswell to it that he pulled me aside and he goes, all right, man. He goes, you were right. I got to say, I didn't see it and you actually saw it. So, congratulations. And so that was good. That was way cool.
That's awesome. It's a gratifying thing. My grandfather, my mom's dad, still wants me to get a real job. I don't know what that means, but
I heard real job so many times in my life, I cannot even count.
I'm like, Dad, Grandpa, I have two kids, I have a house, I have a wife, I'm paying my bills, I have a car. I'm pretty sure I have a real job right now. I think it's just like it pays a salary, man. Like I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. Maybe it's just the idea too of like artwork and beer. And then he's like, how is there a career? There's like, isn't there like two breweries in the entire country, like Bud Light? And I'm like, no, there's definitely
That
more.
too. Yeah, and that's a good point, but you're making a good point, and that was what got my dad as well, because how he grew up, there was only like he was in World War II, so
Yeah.
he didn't finish high school. He went to the war. He did his time in the war. He got out. And what everybody did was you worked for a company and you stayed with that company your whole life, which my
Hmm.
dad did, and you retire and they give you a pension. And that was all he really understood. And the idea that, like you and like we're going to go change the whole trajectory. Like it was too much for him to get his head wrapped around that. Well, I think it wasn't. I think he could get his head wrapped around it, but the no safety net.
Yeah.
That whole this is too wild. This is too daring. This is the safe path, and what you're doing isn't safe. And it was, and he was concerned for my well-being. It
Yeah.
wasn't, but I think it was his own personal fears, thrust upon me. And he was, these were real, they were sound fears,
Hmm.
but I was also young and dumb
Yeah.
and I didn't care about them or didn't see them the way he saw them.
And let's be honest. I mean, in that sense, it's like you're one of the few, and I say few, but one of the people who actually it's a success story in this. There was another person who went to the exact same vocational school, probably had the exact same conversation with their dad, who ended up, not doing this and is working at a 7-Eleven behind a counter for the rest of their lives. Like there is that story that there wasn't a success to it, so I
Right.
can understand where someone's coming from when they're like, I don't know,
Absolutely. But
and that's why there's
then we're gonna
that.
then we flip the coin one more time.
Yeah.
Is if the guy didn't at least try it, then
Yes.
then he can't say, like there was other things I tried in my life along the way that didn't pan out, but I'm going glad I did it. It didn't pan out, but man, that was and almost every shitty thing that happened to you in your life is a great story to tell now
Yes.
when you're older and go, I was so stupid that I did this. And and they're learning, and your kids are still young. My
Yeah.
kid's now old enough where I can tell him a whole lot of stories that I couldn't tell him when he was
Yes.
12, but they're way funny now when he's 26.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's like I bought a car when I turned 18 and my dad said don't do it. About a year later I said, Dad, you were right. I was like I
yeah,
shouldn't have done
yeah,
this.
yeah.
See?
Yeah,
There
oh,
is
my dad had plenty of good advice. Plenty of good advice.
See? But again, you turned out well, and again, you became one of the most famous, unfamous people in the world. And and no, but so you did a couple other you went on to do this professionally. You did some artwork for different covers. Obviously, the internet is one thing. What was your first big cover that you got? Like, what was the first book cover you did? Do you remember?
Yeah, first book
Wikipedia says 1985. It was Nola 3.
there was one before that. It
Okay.
was called Found Wanting.
Okay.
Same publisher, Daw Publishing. I did 3 or 4 books in a row with him. He was the first guy to go, yeah, I'm going to give you a shot, kid. And he was an older dude. He was originally an author, and then he was around long enough that he became his own publisher.
Hmm.
All sci-fi books, and he put out some real monsters in his day. And yeah, he saw something in me and gave me a shot. Uh, and it was, and there's nothing more exciting than that first one.
Hmm.
While you're doing it, it's exciting, but then you turn it in. But it's not until you're able to go to the Barnes and Noble,
Yeah.
and there it is. It's in the shelf with everybody else's, and you go, all right, man, this is something. Uh, but you're also, they're not paying you hundreds of thousands of
Yes.
dollars for that cover. And at the beginning you get one or two a year.
Yeah.
That's not doing anything.
Hmm.
That doesn't keep the lights on at the house. So that's that. But once you do have that first one, it's way easier to go knock on the door down the street and say, look,
Yeah.
I did one and I got it done on time. And you could go talk to Donald Walheim and he'll tell you, I'm responsible and I get stuff done. So, yeah, that first one is a big one.
And how, so you did a bunch, or you did a few after that too, but like, how did this lead into, how did you end up getting the job as the Goosebumps, a cover artist?
Um, so did a couple of jobs on my own.
Hmm.
Uh, Worked with another art director, and at this point, maybe I've got less than 10 books under my belt. And he's going, yeah, he goes, and I was, I live in Jersey, would drive into New York, and I was the guy knocking on the doors. Me and my ex-wife were the ones going around and seeing everybody. And this art director said, listen, it's way good that you're hustling like this, but you got to get yourself a rep because you
Hmm.
need to be staying home and painting, and somebody else should be finding the work for you. And I'm going to give you a name of a couple of people, and those people are professionals. That's
Hmm.
their job, is finding work for artists. And this will really change, you change your trajectory. So I did get that rep. He opened a ton of doors. We were, instead of just working for the two publishers I had at the time, he had connections with basically all of them.
Hmm.
And I did a couple of jobs with Scholastic over the years, for a couple of years, mostly young adult stuff, kid stuff, no horror though. I hadn't done
Okay.
any horror. And, and I was, I would do, I wasn't picky and choosing, if there was a job, I'm doing it. And when Goosebumps came along, it wasn't a big, there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm for it. They didn't think it was going to do well. I had just finished up a cover, and I was, I was sitting there on the bench, and they just went, "Oh yeah, this is coming along. There's no reason why you can't do this. Why don't you give this a shot?" So I was kind of standing in the right place at the right time. If I was on another book cover or another book cover project, it was going to somebody else. It wasn't
Hmm.
like they were going, "Oh, this thing is made just for Tim." And no, no, that's not it at all. It was, "Hey, you're standing there with nothing to do. Come over here. Let's see if we can put you to work."
And at the beginning, I mean, I don't know the whole. I don't. I've never had a conversation with R.L. Stine or any of the
Yeah.
people over at Galactus. But at the beginning, was this gonna be a long series, or was this like a
No, no, it was again very, it was presented to me as, hey, we've got this thing, we're going to try it. We've never tried this for this market. We don't
Mhm.
think it's going anywhere. We don't even have a full budget for the covers. Will you help us out on this? Do these couple of covers, and then when this thing blows over, we'll we'll get you. We'll, for doing us a favor, we'll make sure we put you on another project.
Mhm.
So again, no enthusiasm whatsoever. I looked at, I got RL had written a chapter for Welcome to Dead House.
Yeah.
I read it and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm in. I don't care. I'll take the couple $100 less. It's a job and it looks like it's going to be fun. So
That's awesome.
yeah, so we did it, and then they were going, yeah, oh, by the way, we hadn't really chosen you. It was you, between you and one other guy, but we like what you're doing, and there'll be a couple more. So at no point early on was there any even hint that this was going to be a success. It was always like, oh yeah, so there's two more. Oh, awesome, there's two more. And then got done with those two, and they're like, yeah, It looks like four more. Oh, wow, very cool. I had never been on a series, so the idea that there was something steady coming
Yeah.
behind that one, that was, oh, that was like, okay, the light, the electric bill is going to
It's
get paid because
paid.
we're good for the next 4 months. There's going to be a book coming. So anyway, it was real nice like that. And then it was, maybe 9 or 10 months in. It didn't like just shoot out of
Mhm.
the, and turn into something. It took a little while for it to build, but when it did finally take off, it went from kind of okay to, like it just spiked.
Mhm.
And then at that point, everybody was just like, all right, we got something here. Don't anybody mess with what we've been doing.
Mhm.
Let's just keep doing the same thing and let's see how long. And then then it got kooky,
Mhm.
then, they're printing Goosebump stuff on every piece of paraphernalia you could possibly make. And yeah, and then it turned into it took on a life of its own.
It's
So
crazy.
yeah,
It's
but
absolutely crazy. What are you talking about? You didn't think Scholastic didn't go, hey, we're going to do 62 of these right from the beginning?
no, 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 no. It was always spoon fed. We'll do a couple more,
Yeah, couple
or
more.
it wasn't until we were in it where then they're going, yeah, we're gonna do 12 more, a whole
Yeah.
year. But yeah, to go, oh, we're doing 62 and you'll be busy for 10 years. Get out of here. That ain't
Nope.
happening.
Yeah, I mean, so did you do all of them, or there's definitely conflicting information? Is there? It says you didn't do number 2 and number 12 some places. Is it
Right. So
okay?
so the on the first go around,
Yeah.
I didn't do book 2 and 12.
Okay.
Then when we got to the end of the series, one of the art directors went, "You did them all except for 2 and 12." Well, do 2 and 12, and we'll mix them in there so you can
Yeah.
go, hey, I
You
did them
tell
all.
them.
And I was like, oh, thanks, man. And so yeah, I can say that I did them all. They just weren't the first run
Mhm.
for 2 and 12. But there
Okay.
are, if you search out and do a Google search on "stay out of the basement" and "be careful what you wish for," you will see my versions of those
Mm.
covers.
That's pretty funny. It's a yeah. So having those missing ones and be like, ah, gosh.
Yeah. Well, no, again,
Yeah.
didn't think of it like
Yes.
that at
Yeah.
all. It was just like, hey, it was great. Yeah, I didn't do those, but look how many I did. There was never, and then when we finished the first 62, we did go on to do the series 2000, and there
Yeah.
was another 26 there. But Goosebumps for me came to an end in the early 2000s, 2003. And
Mm.
and to me, it was like, wow, that was a hell of a run. Okay, that's it. We're done. Put this one to bed, and we got to kind of reinvent who we are and continue to get work. The idea of this nostalgia thing and
Yeah.
people revisiting this thing all these years later, that's that I never saw that coming. And it's still, I say it constantly. It still blows me away that, here's you and I.
Yeah.
It's December 16,
Yes.
2024.
Yeah.
We got other things to do.
Yeah. Exactly. Well,
Yet this is cool and it's fun to talk about, and people are still excited.
it's cool because I'm a part of a. I read a lot of novels as well as comics and other watch movies and things like that. And in my year this year was like, oh, I'm gonna reread some of these and see what see if I remember them the same way I did when I was reading them as a younger lad. And there's some of them that okay. Sometimes, I'll be brutally honest. Sometimes I'm like, R.L. Stine didn't do his best in this one, but there's a lot of them that are just like, holy crap, these are still bangers. They still resonate
Yeah.
with me. They still hit the same way. And again, I think it's still the benefit I get being a designer of beer labels is I'm the first thing that people see when they go to buy it in the
Yeah.
store. And so if someone looks at the thing and goes, "That's sweet, I want that," I am the one that hopefully drew them into that, which is really cool. And I will say the first thing that draws a lot of people into the nostalgia of these things is two things. It's the artwork itself that's on the front, it's the logo. And so like those two things that are on the front of that book is the first thing that I think a lot of people go, even if they're never going to read it. I mean, there's something like just something about these things that just I think it's the size, it's the fact that it's horror for younger people. I think a lot of it there's a nostalgia that we live through right now in general in the world, and so this fits into there. I think it's one of those things that a lot of people want to relive their childhood in the
Yes.
positive side of their
Yeah.
childhood, and this is one of the things that we almost felt like we were doing something wrong. I almost felt like I was reading something I wasn't supposed to be reading because I got the Goosebumps books, and then there was the TV show that obviously helped fuel some things, and then the revitalization of the TV show nowadays. I mean, in January this year is what the second
Yeah.
season or whatever of the little reboot they're doing over at Disney Plus, and that's just fascinating to me. There's multiple movies, like it's crazy, and you had a part. Your one of your pieces of artwork was in the first movie. Is that right at the end of it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
At
and so
the end
that's
of the
cool.
first
Cool. I
movie.
mean,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
movie itself is not like it doesn't really have anything to do with you in a sense. I mean, obviously you were part of the original material, but like it's not like they're asking you to do the poster. And
Right.
so
And,
what's
and,
cool about
and
this, having your artwork in the movie, you were a part of it.
Yeah, and that was it. I was, when I heard the movie was coming, I was like, oh, that would be cool to do something. And I was thinking movie poster, but I'm going, yeah, that's a whole separate genre. Oh,
Yes.
like it's like saying, hey, I play baseball, but there's a football game going on down the
Yeah.
street. They should let me play. That's not how it works. So uh, when they didn't contact me until very late in the process, and I had already like mentally went, oh, all right, nothing's going to happen. That's okay. I can't wait to go see the movie. And when they called me up and said, hey, we need you to do this piece, it was like, all right, one more time. We
Hmm.
got to do something. And uh, the guys were very cool that I worked with. And yeah, it was fun. The whole thing was very fun.
It's just really cool to see. Like I said, it's one of those things that I think that we do live in a nostalgic world, and Goosebumps is part of that. And I think your artwork is just I don't know, it's unique. It's one of those things you don't see that often anymore, and I think that it brings me back to my childhood. But when you went into making these things, this was just like they told you the name of the book and a little synopsis of what the book's about, and that was it. You just ran with it on that. Like I said, I did some research before. I wanted to hear from the horse's mouth a little bit more instead of just the internet. But like you didn't. It's not like you had conversations on the phone with R.L. Stine saying that what do you want to
No,
do. It's just basically
no.
Scholastic being like, this is what the book's about. Do some
Yeah.
artwork.
RL would go, here's the title, here's a
Yeah.
couple sentences. I got to write the book, have at it, go to town. And then he never, and what's I think interesting to people who don't know how the business is, he had no say
Mm.
whatsoever in my sketches, what went on the cover. He would just see it when it was finished, the artwork, and go, all right, that's what's going on the book. And again, everybody has to remember
Yeah.
this is all pre-internet, social media, immediate contact on anything. I didn't know what he thought of what I was doing. I hoped he liked it. And then you would get word from an art director who said, "Oh yeah, yeah, RL saw it and he thought that was cool." But it was always word of mouth, and I'm going, "Yeah, he could be lying. Who knows?" Uh, anyway, um, so yeah, the being able to kind of just
Do
have
what you
limited
want.
amount of information to create the
Yeah.
cover is actually advantageous. And
Hmm.
I'm sure if you're designing, labels for
Yeah.
beer, there's only so much they can tell you.
Hmm.
It's like, yeah, it's a lager, it's a porter, it's a
Yeah.
this, and then you got to create the whole story on your own and make it interesting and come up with a theme.
Hmm.
And the RL would give me just enough to go, all right, I see what we're doing this time. I think, I'm going to go. And because there was limited amount of information, I could go, well, I can do this. They didn't tell me I couldn't do this.
Hmm.
But if they boxed me in and said, it's this, it's happening here, this is what this is what the creature looks like,
Yeah.
this tall, and we're in the Midwest, and like the more information, the box gets smaller, and
Hmm.
never had any of that.
Did they come back a lot at you and say, do it this way, do it this way? It's not scary enough. It's too scary, or things like that,
No,
or
we were on, you know, God bless
yeah.
R.L. Stine. He's writing a book a month, along with the other books he's writing at the same time. So our turnaround was very, very tight,
Hmm.
and nobody. I only had to change a couple of pieces. Nobody messed around. They were always like, "Okay, good, this one's done. Here's the next." Like we were always looking right to the next one. It was like, yeah, good enough. All right, let's keep, it was, as if you're just running, handing the baton off all the time. Hurry up, get it to the printer. Hurry up, get it on the truck.
Well,
Hurry up, get it in the stores.
I mean,
So,
I talked to a lot of comic creators and comic artists, and it seems very similar to the world. I mean, it's a
yes,
serialized item, and so you're talking things that like there's deadlines to meet and things like that, where these aren't like what normal books are nowadays, which is R.L. Stine just released Shark Night last this past year. It's like he's going to work on his next book for next year. It's not like he's
right,
doing this every month like he was back then.
right.
He might release a couple a year, but like I'm just saying, like there's not this. You were on a deadline, so in a sense, even if they didn't like it, they probably were like, yeah, we'll do.
Yeah, oh,
Let's
right.
go.
We're gonna go. It's like, we got to live with it. All right, move on to the next one. Where I'm sure that the guy who's doing the new covers for RL's
Yeah,
books, and they're on a much slower pace,
yeah.
he's working with a much larger group of people, and
Hmm.
there's many other people putting their 2 cents worth in, and that's okay too. I mean, that's mostly how this business runs.
Hmm.
The idea that you get to do what you want, get out of here. That's not happening. So it's just, if the people who you work with are good,
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter how many there are.
Hmm.
If everybody's cool and everybody knows how to, how to put their 2 cents worth in, or know when to not say something, or when to step in, like you get a good team together and it doesn't matter. But,
Hmm.
back then it was just me and really just one other person who was the art director. She was great. She had ideas. I had ideas. Tell me yours. You're mine. All right. I'm here. I'll put them all down on paper
Yeah.
and send them over, and people pick what they want.
Do you have a lot of the originals
I have the
artwork?
original sketches. Artwork, they paid me extra
Okay.
to hang on to the art. Back then, it was hard to get reproductions because, again, these are paintings. They're not
Yes.
not
Yeah.
digital files. So they said, "Listen, we're going to keep asking you for this art. So we'd rather pay you some extra money and keep them all." And at the time, I was like,
Whatever.
"Okay, give me the extra money." And now in hindsight, it's like, ooh, that was probably the least effective business transaction I ever did in my whole life.
Yeah, I mean it is what it is. It's the early person writing a book and signing away all their rights because it's the way this money up front and then comes out to be turned out to be a blockbuster franchise that
Right.
they didn't know was going to do as well and so on and so forth. And again, R.L. Stine when 1992 when R.L. Stine came out with the first Goosebumps books, it wasn't like oh guys look what R.L. Stine's doing. This is a beginning. This is a we didn't it was an unknown. It was just as much as an unknown than you were
It was an
at that
unknown, and
time.
it,
Yeah.
it started out with a little negative press. It's like,
Mm.
oh, these are devil books, and
Yep.
that we shouldn't be having them in the, like it all started out a little bit bumpy, a little bit rocky, and yeah, but it found its way.
Mm.
You guys,
Yes.
as kids, were the ones that made it find its way, and it
Hmm.
was through pure word of mouth of you talking to one another and just going, these are cool, these are cool.
And having the name of Scholastic behind it, I mean, let's be honest, Scholastic book fairs were like a massive, massive thing for us in school. Like my son it's different nowadays. My son has it at his daycare. They do it once every quarter or whatever, but it's a little like a flyer, like a newspaper flyer. Basically, you go through and pick what you want. You go online, you order it, and it comes in the mail a couple weeks later. Whereas it used to be like you go in there and they'd be like, you go home with a book that day. Like Scholastic would show up at my school with like a bunch of books, and you could buy the next Goosebumps book right there at
Yeah, right.
school.
It was all
It
physical
was
and
all
it was a
yeah,
huge event. And yeah, like you said,
yeah,
they showed up with a vehicle full of
yeah,
stuff. And so that's another key to why Goosebumps was successful
yeah.
because Scholastic was doing academic books first, and they had built the pipeline that went from the Scholastic building to the schools.
Hmm.
So then when they started to branch out and create different kinds of books, the pipeline's there. So the fact that Goosebumps books were probably some of the earlier non-academic books that were showing up. Plus, they were so different. Well, there's monsters showing up in your school library. I wasn't competing with other monsters there. It was my territory.
It
So
was either yours or like how to do algebra. It was.
that's
I don't know which one
really,
I want to.
real
Which
easy
one's
to
more
get your
scary? I don't
attention.
know. I don't know
Exactly.
which one's more scary in that pick. No.
Exactly.
But yeah. So I mean, do you have a favorite? I mean, it's hard to say. It's like your child, your babies. I know you have a real kid, but like,
Yeah, it changes a lot. I move around with
yeah,
ones. There's ones that are popular, and I like them. I don't hate any of them,
mhm,
but I like the ones where when RL would send over the stuff and go, okay, that's what this one is. I would have to go, huh? I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Where some of them were totally straightforward.
yeah,
Um, Scarecrow walks at midnight.
yeah,
You already have a mental image. It already popped in your head. So did I. I got this one. We know what to do. Very simple. But when he says something like egg monsters from Mars, you go, huh? I don't even know what that is, but I'm going to have to spend some time. And this
yeah,
is way cool because no one knows what this is. So whatever I make is going to be okay because
mhm,
there's not like, oh, wolves don't look like that.
yeah.
Wolves look like this. So those were the fun ones, the ones
Mhm.
where these don't exist and I get to just make them up from scratch.
That's it. Do you have do fans when you've been doing conventions and things like that
Yeah.
recently? And do have fans have a favorite one in your opinion? Do you think that there's like a one that gravitates towards?
So well, yeah, so the ones I cannot not show up to the cons with
Yeah,
are the Haunted Mask,
yeah.
Night of the Living Dummy, A Day at Horrorland.
Okay.
Those
Yep. Yep. Yep.
those are the monsters. Those are the ones. If I just went to a con and that's all I had on the table, I would do okay.
Yeah.
But they sell 5 times as many, and I'll bring I keep changing them up and I shuffle them and I bring a whole bunch of different ones. But those three, those are killers. And then there's a second tier with Say Cheese and Die,
Yep.
Werewolf of Fever Swamp,
Yep.
Welcome to Dead House. Again, there's a group of ones that people just have super super fond
Yeah.
attachments to.
I think I gravitate towards the ones that do have inanimate objects in it, or like a house, or the monster blood one, where it's like it's just stairs with blood going or
Right,
green ooze
right,
going down
right.
it. But you're like you have somehow made me go, oh crap, this is scary as hell. But it's just a pair instead of stairs with some. It looks like someone spilled their Mountain Dew going down it. No, but yeah, it's the same. It's just a haunted house. It's not, but there's something about that that does it for me in that sense. But yeah, there's also like Welcome to Camp Nightmare where it's like the
Yes.
monsters around the tent and you don't see the whole thing and it has this eeriness to it and so on. And
You can only see his hand, and then
yep,
there's some eyes, and the rest
eyes.
of it, yeah. Anytime that you can uh, put something in a position where the viewer has got to make up the rest of it in their head.
Yes, yes,
That's
yes. That's
the famous story about the movie Jaws was
yep.
the shark was a piece of shit, so he kept
Yes.
filming around it. So we all got like it wasn't you only saw it for a little bit and it scared the hell out of you. So
Yes.
kind of the same thing here.
Yes. It's the fear of unknown. It's that thing. But yeah, I mean, To be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, I don't know when my son's gonna be old enough to it not scare the crap out of him in the first place because he's scared of everything. But we're watching. I don't know. We were watching Christmas Chronicles last night or whatever, and he was like, there was a moment where like I don't know, the police officers were chatting with the Santa Claus, and he's like, I don't like this part. Like, oh, because everything's not festive and joyous right here. You're scared of the movie. No, there's like moments in like the Grinch or the new Grinch, which is really fluffy, honestly. And he's like, "Can we skip this?" And like, dude, come on.
Well,
I love
listen,
horror stuff.
I've mentioned this before as well. I was that kid.
Yeah,
I wasn't the horror guy. I wasn't the brave kid. I was the kid who called his mom from the movies, come and pick me
come
up.
me
This is
up.
too scary. So the fact that somehow I'm the guy who's making the scary stuff for kids, it doesn't really make any sense, but that's the way it all unfolds. So yeah, your kid will,
Yeah.
he'll come around, and just it'll depend when he comes around.
He likes. I've moved my collection of Goosebumps books. I would say 50 of 62 Goosebumps books. A couple of them are the later printings, which I need to replace because I don't. This is a podcast with you on it, so I can talk great things about you. What we've seen currently and recently in reprintings of the Goosebumps is not meeting my standards of what Goosebumps is supposed to be. How about I put it that way? Is that a
Yeah, yeah,
politically correct statement? Um,
perfectly cool.
but he loves helping me organize. Like I've moved him from the hallway because I ran out of room and I put him in my office and things like that. He's like, "Can we put the Goosebumps books away?" And he's helped me putting them in
Nice.
order. And so he has the word Goosebumps in his
I
brain
was
at
just
least.
going to
There's
say
that. Yeah.
he can identify
Yes, he
with
does.
them.
Yeah,
That's cool.
and he wants to know when I'm going to move him again. That's the other question. He's like, "Can we move the Goosebumps books?" I'm like, "I don't need to, man. I don't." Some of them are pretty fragile right now. The bindings are getting kind of rough, so we can't move them too much. But how does your son? Does he
So
have a connection to it at all, or?
he was of an age where the first wave of Goosebumps was kind of dying down when he was the age to be
Yeah.
reading. So he knew what they were. He wasn't a big reader when he was that age. Uh, then there's the third part of it where it's what my dad does.
Yes,
So
yes.
that kind of makes it way less cool. Um, he he became more fan is not the right word, but he became more of a fan when he got older, and
Yes,
then
yeah,
he
yeah,
could kind of look at it from afar and go, "Yeah, this thing's pretty cool."
yeah.
He's come with me to a few cons and worked behind the table with me, and yeah, now he can appreciate them, and he helps me with the poster business. So he's an active part of it. So it's a different perspective. And but yeah, as a kid, nah,
Yeah,
he
I feel
didn't.
the same way. My dad was a musician. He played drums in rock bands growing up, and I was always like, "Oh, that's pretty cool" and all that stuff. But like as a younger kid, I was like, "I don't listen to his music though. That's just weird." And nowadays, I'll actually put it on and listen to it. And,
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
20 years ago that he quit the band or whatever. And so it's nice. Yeah, I can understand it being like, "Oh, that's my dad's thing." It's always funny to seeing people talk like a kid, parents whose kids are like, I don't know, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, or someone was like, "Yeah, I don't
Sure.
like the music. There's not
Yeah,
my
yeah,
favorite."
right. And I can appreciate it because you're
Yes.
trying to, either you've been overexposed to it, as it's around everywhere in your
Yeah.
home. So you're just going, yeah, yeah. What else is there out there?
Mm.
I'm gonna find my own stuff.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, so as we get closer to wrapping this up here, what what do you find nowadays is just so special about those Goosebumps covers from the 90s and then 2000s? What resonates the most with you?
It's so when Goosebumps was popular in the 90s, and let's say the Barnes and Noble down the street
Mhm.
had me come in to sign some books, and you would show up, but when you showed up, you were 11 years old,
Yeah.
and you're showing up with your parents, and you would be shy, and we really didn't have a conversation other than, I like Goosebumps, do you know R.L. Stine? And that would be the extent of the conversation. And now when I go to a con, there's not the majority of the people who come to talk to me are in their late 30s, some of them are in their 40s, and it's a whole different conversation, and they're telling me specific stories of how it was when they were a kid and
Mhm.
why this stuff meant something to them, and like we're having very interesting conversations about the significance of the series to them that they remember fondly, and uh, that's very cool.
Mhm.
Because again, when I was doing it back then in the day, it was like, yeah, this is fun. I got a cool job. I'm making these kids happy, but I had no idea I was gonna make an impression on them enough that they'd still have memories of it when they're adults.
Yeah.
Listen, I did a ton of things when I was 11 that that I don't think about or talk about. They just kind of went along their way, and the fact that this stuff still resonates, that's it's interesting, it's cool, and it's not anything I take as for granted. I
Yep.
know that's a special cool thing.
That's awesome. Well, I was just thinking one last thing when you were talking about that is what about the people who have tattoos of your covers on them?
It's wild. But now, when it first started happening, I was going, what the hell is wrong with me? What are they doing? Like there's so much cool art out there. Go,
You can
get
go do
something
that.
original. Don't do that. And then now over the years, and I've met the people, and then they have a story that goes along with it and why this piece resonates with them. It's the coolest thing in the world. Those are the dedicated fans.
Yes.
They've laid it on the line, and at first when it was happening, it was just there was just one or two out there, and now it's a thing, and
Yes.
it's again super flattering, very very flattering. And there's the ones that resonate with me are the ones where the tattoo artist has put their own spin on it.
Yeah.
So it's not just a copy of my cover.
Yeah.
They've done something extra to it to kind of make it theirs and mine.
Yeah.
And now these people are getting, something original on them. So yeah, no, beyond you couldn't have told me at any point in my life, oh, by the way, you're going
It's,
to do some artwork that people you don't even know are going to tattoo it on their body. Listen, when I went to high school, when I was a kid, the
yeah.
only people who had tattoos were guys who were in the Navy. My dad's
Yes.
friends from the
Yeah.
Navy, and they were ships. And then if there was a kid in your high school who had a tattoo, that means he was in juvie, and
Yes.
there was nothing fashionable or cool about tattoos. So again, you tell me that stuff when I'm in high school, I'd be like, what are we
Yeah. Yeah.
talking about? So
That's funny. So I have multiple tattoos, okay?
yeah,
And
it's every day.
my favorite comic book artist is the guy named Scotty Young, and you I've probably heard of him or
Sure,
not, but
I know who's
yeah,
got it.
and there's a number of Scotty Young ones on here, and it started off with my son's name is Nova, so this is Nova, and so on
Cool.
and so forth. And then my buddy's Ben Bishop, who draws for the Ninja Turtles. I have one of his Ninja Turtle
I have
drawings
Ben
on
as
on
well.
my yeah on my shoulder, and so it's one of those things that like when I talked to Scotty Young on this podcast, and he was just like, yeah, it's really weird, it's really odd seeing people walk through. You're like, yeah, I didn't draw that for your skin, but okay, cool, man. Like
Yeah, right.
whatever.
That's a good that it the composition
Yeah,
was made to fit on the square the book cover, and
yeah.
now there it is on your arm. It's like, yeah, if I knew it was going to be on your arm, we would do something different with it.
Yes,
But
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. But
yeah,
yeah, it's cool, and I do think that my best one of my best friends is my tattoo artist, and he likes to do these pieces of artwork because he's also like one of those things where he's like, it's not someone coming in and be like, can you put a butterfly on me? He's like, it's something that he has a
that too.
passion with too. So if I went in there
Yeah,
and said, hey, can I get one of Tim's Goosebumps images on me? He'd be fascinated and loving it because he grew up with me and he knew he's a Goosebumps fan too. And it's like being able to illustrate that on someone's arm or leg or whatever is pretty sweet to him too. So when he does the Scotty Young stuff, he's like, oh, at least I'm not doing another tribal symbol. He's like, at
yeah,
least I'm doing
yeah.
something more
Right,
creative and
right.
more
And
fun than just something stupid.
yes, and I could see that. And
Yeah.
again, like I say, and then I've seen some, very cool, cool placements. I've
Yeah.
seen some top of people's hands. I've
Hmm.
seen some really great black and white stuff where, my art is just totally saturated with color, and they pull all the color out, and all of a sudden the thing takes on a whole different vibe.
Yep.
And yeah, it's again, nobody saw that shit
No,
coming.
no, no, no one ever. No, I tell you that right now. I don't think that when the Scholastic was like, oh yeah, it's probably. I don't want to make a guess, but it's one of the few early
What's our
Scholastic
policy
books. Yeah,
on tattoos?
they're like, oh wait, one of these days, one of our Scholastic books are going to be tattooed on someone. That's awesome. No, it's a fun thing, and I do think that it shows the passion, it shows the nostalgic in it. But what's cool for people nowadays is on your website you can buy the prints now, and at cons, but you can buy the prints on your website, which is something that to me it's like these live on a shelf, but a lot of times they're spine out, so they can't really. You're not just randomly going to be displaying. Someone's gonna be like, why is there a random Goosebumps books on your shelf somewhere? But having these prints available for people to purchase and stuff is pretty cool too. And I'm guessing you sign prints when they
Yes,
go out and things
they're
like
all
that. So,
signed, and they also I sell them at two sizes, but the big size, which is 18 by 18, is very close to the original size that I
oh,
did the
okay.
paintings. So to see them stripped of all the text,
Mhm.
you get the you get to see what I saw when I was creating them, and you can see the amount of size where that's the level of detail I was able to, that's what I had in front of me. So I think it gives you a chance to see the art a little bit differently. And yeah, and then the flip side of it is we carve out $10 from every sale of each poster to buy food for the food bank down the street. So people are getting some cool art, and we're loading up the truck with some food once a month to take down the street. So you get that, again, started this thing out thinking it was going to be, a couple bags. We'll be
Yeah.
done. You know, this thing will all kind of fall in on itself, and I'll be done in 8 months. And we're 5 years in, and we just every month, everybody's graciousness fills the truck, and and the people at the food bank just so uh the way so it's just my son and I. And
Yeah.
so the way to cut the steps, we, at the end of the month, we tally up the sales. You go, how many? Then you put a zero on the end. That
Yeah.
means that's $10. And then we order the food through Walmart. So Walmart will deliver the food to your house, and it all comes in Walmart boxes and bags.
Bags, and so you can.
So for the first couple of years, the people down the street thought I worked for Walmart, and they didn't know. They had no idea what I was doing, and they're going, "This is weird," like. And again, I'm not there to tell this. I'm just here's the food. That's all we're doing. And then finally, after years of us showing up, they ask more questions. So we're no longer the Walmart guy. I'm finally the Goosebumps guy, and so that's it's a little close to the truth.
That's awesome. It's just working at Walmart. Yeah, that's what I do. And you go, and I didn't even pay for any of this. I just stole it. Don't like that's great.
Exactly,
I just walked out
exactly.
the back door.
If
No one said
everybody
a
stays
thing.
quiet, we'll keep the scam going.
Exactly. And what is your website? I meant to say that.
It's jacobusstudios.com.
Okay, there you go. And we're finishing this up here, but are you working on other book covers right now too? Or is this like,
I just finished up a piece that's will get some pretty good exposure. I can't talk
cool?
about it.
That's fine. Yeah.
It's something a little bit different. Again, different market, different different genre. But I painted some recognizable people are in the painting, so
That's cool.
that's a lot of fun. And earlier this summer, I got a chance to work for Magic the Gathering.
No.
They let me do some cards for their new horror series. So yeah, again, the work is there. People are still interested in the style. So yeah, I'm very happy to be doing what I've been doing for. Well, what are we talking? We're 90. It's been a lot of years.
Let's see.
I'm
Yeah,
40 plus years,
92.
40, yeah,
Yeah.
40 plus years. Again, my first book was in
Yes.
83,
Yeah.
84.
Yeah.
So, I've been doing this so long, I can't remember not doing it.
Hmm.
It's like my whole life, but Yeah, it's been wonderful.
It's fantastic. You are a part of my childhood, even though I didn't know who you were until recently. But yeah, like I said, it's one of those things, and yeah, and it's one of those. Daniel Kraus, author Daniel Kraus, came on a couple of times. I actually did a beer collaboration with Daniel at my brewery. But he has mentioned before about he's part of this like group of people who want to start doing a lot more with like crediting people in the back of books or in the front of novels that put the work into it. So it's not just the author who's writing these
Yeah,
books. It's the cover artist, it's the designer, it's the layout person,
yeah,
it's the
that's
publicist, the PR people, all that
yeah,
stuff to help push this book out. It's not just one author doing all the work and then doing it. And so he says, as the author, he's like, I want more people getting credit because in comic books, I mean, you look at the inside of it, it's like the guy who gets the mail is credited in the inside of a comic book
yeah,
page,
yeah. That's cool.
and so.
And book designers are the unsung heroes
Mm-hmm,
of the book market. They can they can make or break you.
mm-hmm.
And just I've seen, we all have,
Yeah.
you've seen some incredible book designs over the years where you just shake your head and go, I wouldn't have thought of that. And that is beautiful.
I've seen it the opposite way too, Tim.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's both. I'm like, how is this book even popular? How does people like this book? How did you pick this
How
book
this
up and go,
happen?
I've got to read this book because it definitely doesn't pass the eye test there for sure. But not everybody can be the Goosebumps artist. So it's
But those guys, I mean, just those guys too, where they
yes,
waited for the
yes,
art to come in.
yeah,
They were lifting colors right
yeah,
out of the paintings to make the frame of the book
yeah,
and change the color of the logo. So
yeah,
every book is its own piece of art. It's its
yep.
own color theory project going on. And yeah, those guys were masters.
And they're iconic, and I do think that's one of those the things that will last for a long time. Again, it's one of those things I'll pass on, and I'm one of many that will pass on this collection to my son and so on and so forth, or my daughter. I mean, she's 9 months old. Maybe she's the one that's in the horror stuff younger.
Wow.
I'm so used to saying my son because my daughter's only been around for 9 months, so it's like for 2 years
A
prior
new
that it was always
team,
like my
yeah,
son,
new
my
team
son, my
member,
son.
new team
And
member.
maybe I'll have to buy a whole nother collection so they both get it, right? I mean, that's how it is with having two kids. I have to buy two of everything. No, it's fun, and it's one of those cool. It's nostalgic. But as a designer and as an artist myself, that's the other part of it. It's like R.L. Stine did a great job writing all these books. But to me, it's the look and the feel and holding these things and seeing the artwork that jumps out at me. And so, you're the one. How I know the mask looks like in the Haunted Mask is because of the artwork that was on the cover. You know what I mean? Like, which obviously leads from a little bit of descriptions, obviously from R.L. Stine. But like seeing that image is how I know some of these things. How do I know what the Dead House looks like? How do I know how these things look like? It's because of the cover of the book, and that's thanks to you. So thank you so much for doing this for so many years.
Right.
But I do appreciate you coming on here and chatting Goosebumps and a bunch of other stuff with us. We'll have to get you back in the future at some point and just
Sure.
chat about something
Anytime.
else.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, thanks for carving some time out to do this, and I hope you have a fun rest of the year. This will release actually at the beginning of the year, so happy New Year.
Awesome.
But yeah, I appreciate you taking the time out.
Same to you. Thanks for having me.